My husband, he made friends in the Air Force with a guy who is a lot like him. So my husband and I, we're not really into drinking. We don't smoke. We're pretty chill, that more laid back couple who likes things more natural, calmer, without so much mess or craziness. And this couple of friends had a behavioral pattern very similar to ours. So little by little, we started to become really good friends. So this guy started coming over to our house with his wife, and we also started going over to their house. And with that, I ended up getting closer to my husband's friend's wife. And we really became true friends, sharing things with each other, lending clothes, being together, talking about life, going through moments, laughing, crying. It was a really nice friendship. In the middle of all this, some little things started happening that began to bother us. For example, this couple, they were a really nice couple. They treated us really well, and we loved them more than anything. We really did. You know those friendships where you think, wow, God really blessed us with this? Then they went and bought an apartment really close to us, like 300 meters away. 300 meters away. Their apartment was really close to ours. But it was great because then we could see each other more often and spend more time together. But my husband and I started to notice some slightly unpleasant behaviors. For example, it all started like this. She came over to our house. Then they started furnishing their apartment and they started wanting to have furniture made just like the furniture in my house. No, that's fine. You can get inspired, but exactly the same. She started making it exactly the same. All right. Then I started to notice that the decoration is something unique. Decoration is something very personal in terms of taste. And then I started to notice that every little thing, like the decorations in my house, they were buying to decorate their house too. Then I was like, okay, right, it's fine. It's just decoration. And then even the colors they used to paint their house made it start looking just like ours. And we started to say, man, at what point is this just inspiration? And at what point is it really copying? Because their house was turning into a replica of our house. We started paying attention to that, saying, no, it's fine. Let them be inspired. We're not going to say anything. Can you imagine us commenting, saying something? Are you crazy? No, that's not what this is about. But we started to realize that it wasn't just about furniture, a decoration, or a wall color. It started to be more than that. So if we talked about plans, about places we wanted to travel to, about clothes I would like to buy, things like that. And then we started to notice that everything we said we wanted became something they wanted to, and they would try to exaggerate or even do it before we did. So my husband and I, we even started to be careful about what we talk about, what we share, and the plans we have. We started to notice that. Just so you have an idea, there was a day when, during a casual conversation between us and the other couples, we started talking about having kids. And then I mentioned the name I would like to give to our future daughter and all. It was, a really random thing. And then suddenly, in another conversation on another day with a different group of people, this topic of motherhood came up again. And then this friend just blurts out in the middle of the group that if she had a daughter, she would give her the name that I said I would give to my daughter. Man, that was already too much. I started thinking, no, wait a minute, hold on. Is she even copying the name of my daughter now? No, I was already very upset by then, but I still didn't say anything. I thought, no, I won't mention this. My husband and I, we always thought that calling each other love or sweetheart, those affectionate nicknames are pretty common. It's something usual between couples. And then we have this habit of calling each other by a special nickname, which I'm not even going to say here because I'm super jealous of that affectionate nickname. And we used to call each other that. It's something very exclusive between him and me. Very few couples call each other that. Actually, I almost never see couples using that nickname. Girl, when I saw her calling him and him calling her with our special nickname from our marriage, that's when even my husband, who doesn't usually care much about these things, men are usually less attached to this thing of like, oh, they're copying, they're doing this or that. But girl, at that point, things started to get really, hold on, right? This is really this is really weird. It feels like the person wants to live our relationship. Were we going crazy? I even considered it. I thought I was going crazy. I even thought I needed help. I said, like, I think I'm going to go to therapy because I think I'm mixing things up. It can't be what I think. I also wanted to believe that they were being mean or malicious or jealous of us. We love that couple so much that, come on, no, no, it can't be that. I think they like us so much that they don't realize that little by little they're becoming a little bit like us. So it bothered us a lot, but not to the point where we'd say anything. But then my husband has a brother who's my brother in law. And my brother in law has his wife, who's my husband's brother's wife. And honestly, my co sister in law, in my opinion, has always silently hated me. Just so you have a little context, I went through a period in my life when I lost a cousin of mine when she was 20 years old. She was a cousin who was almost like a sister to me. She was about the same age as me. She died very suddenly, and we weren't prepared to lose her. When we lose someone who is about the same age as us, so young, I don't know if you've ever been through that, but we start to reflect on our own lives, about our own choices, about what we're doing. And it was a time when I had a lot of crying spells. I had a lot of crying spells. I went through a really big emotional imbalance. I became emotionally unstructured. I had a lot of anxiety attacks. I couldn't eat because of the grief, the grieving process, right? From having lost this cousin. And I couldn't get out of bed. I couldn't work. Wow, I was really unwell. And then during this period, a third person who came to talk to me showed me a conversation where my sister in law was making fun of me, laughing at my grief, saying I was being dramatic, that I was making everything up, that I wasn't going through any of that. Like, seriously, she was trying to invalidate my feelings, my grief for my family member. Who does she think she is? So, like, I don't even need to say anything else about what this sister in law has already done to me for you to understand that she always hated me in silence, because for someone to mock another person's grief, what for? What does she get out of it? She gets nothing, right? She was always making awkward little comments, always trying to make things, uncomfortable, make things uncomfortable, an uncomfortable situation, to belittle a situation. She was always throwing little jabs at me. And honestly, I never did anything to her. I mean, I don't even have a reason to smile at her. I don't understand why she's like that with me. But I've always been like, okay, if you don't like me, you stay over there. I'll stay over here. That's it. We treat each other politely. When I see her, I say hi. She doesn't really talk to me, but I greet her and I keep being who I am. And then back to this friend, the wife of my husband's friend, who was copying everything we did. She knew about the pain I went through with my sister in law. She knew because every now and then my husband managed to get his brother together with this couple of friends. So, like, they weren't really close friends, they were mutual friends of ours. But I started to notice some movement from this friend of mine with my sister in law. I started to notice it. They were chatting often and becoming quite friendly. And in fact, that really bothered me a lot. So I went to express my feelings to my friend, and at no point did I go to her and tell her what was bothering me. For example, her copying my daughter's name, her copying the pet name, her copying the color of my wall, her copying my furniture. Just so you have an idea. At our house, we have a cooktop. Just so you have an idea, at our house, we had a cooktop stove that didn't fit on our countertops. So we had to have a cabinet made, custom furniture, all different just to fit it. Well, you won't believe it. They did the same thing at their house, even though they didn't need to. They could have set it up however they wanted in their house, right? We had to make an adjustment to fit our stove, But they went and made an adjustment to fit their stove just like ours. Even. When our stove, let's say, had a problem with the countertop and we had to have it fixed, they went and copied that too. So, like, at no point did I actually tell her what was bothering me. What I did talk about with this friend of mine was honestly our friendship, just to tell her to be careful. And all I went to talk to her, I said, look, that she's someone who she hates me in silence, she doesn't like me, just be careful, keep an eye out, and then she came at me all defensive, attacking, started saying that she wasn't going to forbid her husband from going to my brother-in-law's house. And I said, no, girl, your husband, I'm not even friends with your husband. I'm not talking about your husband. I'm talking about you, because honestly, I'm not even friends with her husband. My husband is friends with her husband. They're friends. Her husband, I'm friends with her. I treat her husband with respect. but we're not friends, you know? So what she was saying to me didn't make any sense. And then she started saying she wasn't going to forbid her husband. And I said, girl, what you're saying doesn't make any sense, you know? And then she turned around and said she wasn't going to change the way she was with my sister in law if the problem with my sister in law was mine and not hers, you know? Then I turned to her and said, hold on, I'm just trying to tell you, girl, a friend of my enemy can't be my friend. You know why? My sister in law already talks bad about me, and people who like me tell me what she says. Don't you think she'll soon team up with him to talk bad about me together? So I was even trying to protect this friendship, like, hey, keep your eyes open, be careful, she's not very trustworthy. But from what I saw, no, you know. Then I said, girl, actually, thinking about it, deep down, I don't think you were ever really my friend, so why? Because I would never give a chance to someone who hurt you, let alone let them become my friend. It makes no sense for her to share her pain with me and for me to stay friends with someone who mistreated her, unless I didn't really like her that much, unless I was never truly her friend. So that's just how I am, you know? I believed I was doing the right thing by messaging her and trying to understand the situation. Because she said that if her friendship wasn't meeting my expectations, then like that was my problem and that we couldn't be friends anymore. Girl, I was devastated by her like expectations, friendship. Am I wrong? Should I not have said anything? I kept questioning myself, you know. But anyway, I let things cool down. I didn't say anything else, okay? About 3 days went by, and I was going to a barbecue at a mutual friend's house where all the husbands were going, and even my sister in law would be there. We went, we got there. She kept to herself. I stayed near her. We didn't even look at each other. We didn't talk. It was really weird, you know? There was this tension between us, you know, really bizarre. But the mother of the person who was throwing the party, she knew we were close, so she came over to tell us something, and she kind of brought the two of us together to talk. So she was talking to both of us. And at that moment, my sister in law arrived. And so my sister in law wouldn't see that I was fighting with one of the people I liked the most, who was my friend, especially because of her. I preferred to just let go of that conversation I had with her, you know? With this expectation about friendship, which was something she told me, I really started wondering if that expectation was just mine, or if a friendship is supposed to be like that. And for a moment, I forgot about that conversation we had. And then we kind of got into the conversation. She talked to me, I answered her. Sometimes I spoke and she answered me. She was actually nice, you know? There was a moment when she joked about pushing me into the pool too. Yeah, when she saw me in a corner and she was with a group of people, she would call me over so we could be together. We had a conversation. And amazingly, in that moment, we forgot that we had argued, you know, that we had had a conflict. It was actually really nice. After that barbecue, that lunch, my mother in law decided she was going to make pastries. So we decided to make pastel at our house. And then my husband invited her husband, and they came over to our place to eat pastel. And there at our house, everyone, my mother in law making pastel for us, I started thinking, like, later I'll talk to her better. Later I'll try to explain myself better. Maybe I didn't know how to express myself, right? Maybe it wasn't that nice what I said. I kept questioning myself. Well, from that day on, she walked out my door and she never spoke to me again. Not ever. They never came back to my house, never replied to a message, never sent a message again, never wanted to be close, never watched any of my stories again. And as I noticed that, I also started to distance myself, right? I thought, well, if she doesn't watch my stuff, I won't watch hers either. In other words, she muted me on social media so she wouldn't see my things, wouldn't see what I post, wouldn't like what I post, you know? So I decided that I would do the same and distance myself from her too. Anyway, my husband and I have a really good relationship, a very healthy relationship, a very pleasant relationship. But every time I think about this situation, I wonder if it was my fault. Today, I'm sharing this story as a question, as a way to vent. Do you think I did something wrong? Do you think I shouldn't care about this friendship? Do you think I was wrong to express my feelings? Honestly, is this thing about being friends with my enemy just nonsense? Should I pretend nothing happened? Was I too extreme, all or nothing? You know, I keep wondering, what did I do? What could I have done? Was I right or was I wrong? How wrong? In your opinion, do you think I was right or wrong? Would you accept a friendship like this? Hi, Makia, how are you all doing? By the way, she said that at no point did he ask the girl to stop talking to the in law, not to be friends with her, for her husband not to go there, nothing like that. She was just warning the girl to be careful with this in-law, that this in-law didn't like her, hated her in silence. So I, Paula, am really like that, okay? I'm really like that. Yeah, when I have a friendship, I'm very loyal to that friendship. I really value that friendship. I take good care of that friendship. And if I have an enemy and a friend I welcomed into my home, especially if I was the one who introduced them, becomes friends with that person, it's like a friend of my enemy can't be my friend. And I believe that's a basic principle, okay? Yeah, I understand that you should never stop being friends with someone because of someone else's story, just because they had a problem with another person. I don't think that's right either. I think she can have a friendship with her, yes. I think she can talk to her sister-in-law, yes. And she can have a healthy relationship with her sister-in-law. Yes, as long as she knows how to stand her ground, and if her sister-in-law opens her mouth to talk about you, she defends you. Look, I'm her friend, and since you don't like her, I'd rather not get involved in this subject. Yeah, I'd rather change the subject, leave the table, not comment. You need to have a lot of emotional balance, okay? For you to be able to stay between two enemies and maintain the relationship between them, you need a lot of balance. And just by the answer she gave you, clearly, she already had the feeling that she was also bothered by you. Maybe she felt that you were more. That's why she was so inspired by your house, your decorations. Maybe she thought you were an amazing girl, an incredible woman, an intelligent woman. And then she ended up not being able to admire you. She envied you. And then when she found a common enemy, that was the move she needed to get rid of this friendship, which deep down bothered her, but she didn't know how. Do you understand? It's a delicate thing. A good therapist could explain this to you in a more in-depth session than at the end of a video, but that's basically it. Yeah, here, it's up to you to understand that these are your values and that these values can't be negotiable, especially when your dignity is at stake, right? Because there we were talking about grief, about someone who didn't like you. So the least that person could have done was to tell you so you could be at peace, to say, friend, be at peace. Even though I'm talking to her, you have my loyalty, I love your friendship, and I would never go along with anything she might do wrong to you, okay? I'm just treating her with respect and kindness. And if she didn't take that stance, it's because she was actually waiting for the right moment to join her and do what you feared. So the best thing that could have happened is this person getting out of your way, this person leaving your life. Be grateful. Maybe this person leaving your life is the answer to a prayer you don't even remember saying, okay? So do value friendships that take care of you, friendships that defend you, friendships that fight for you, just like the woman in this story would. Yeah, and send me your stories. Have you ever had a friendship with a couple where you also felt like they were copying you? Did you feel like they wanted to have a relationship similar to yours? Or have you ever become friends with someone who used to be your enemy? Send your story to this channel at diadapola@gmail.com and subscribe to my channel to become a member. You'll get to watch 12 videos per month in advance. The link is here in the description. Like, comment, share, and subscribe. Kisses, and see you in the next video.